Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. To open our event, I will be speaking to you all in my native language, Te Reo Māori, and then I will translate into English. So I will start our opening now. A karakia is a formal greeting that Māori use to open ceremonies or events. So I will start with a karakia. Tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I waho, tū taua mai I roto. Kia tau ai, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. The karakia means to come forth from above, below, and within, and from the environment. Vitality and well-being for all, strengthened in unity. Ina mana, ina reo, ina iwi o te ao whānui, tēnā koutou katoa. Tēnā koutou I raro I te korowai o te rangi I te manaaki a papa tuanuku e hui hui mai nei I tēnei wā whakahirahira. Tēnā koutou I ngā māngai no Uropi, no ngā whenua o Amerika. Tēnā koutou I ngā wahine e whakakaha ana I te ao. Tēnā koutou I ngā iwi taketake I te aki nei I ngā tikanga me ngā taonga tuku iho. Tēnā koutou I ngā pou o te manapori e whakarangatira ana I ngā iwi. Tēnā koutou I ngā rangatahi e kawe ana, I ngā wawata kakariki mō ngā rā e heke mai nei. Tēnā koutou I ngā mema o ngā parimata o te ao. Nau mai hara mai ki tēnei whakanuia ao. Kia kotahi ai tātou I raro I te whakaro kotahi. Kia toitu te rangi Māori, kia toitu te oranga mō ngā whakatupuranga. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. To all leaders, to all voices, to the many peoples of the world, greetings to you all. Greetings to you gathered here beneath the cloak of the sky and under the care of the earth, assembled together at this significant moment. Greetings to the representatives from Europe and the Americas. Greetings to the women who strengthen our world. Greetings to the Indigenous peoples who uphold traditions and ancestral treasures. Greetings to the pillars of democracy who uplift our people. Greetings to the young people who carry green aspirations for the future, and greetings to the members of parliaments across the world. Welcome, welcome to this global celebration. Let us come together in unity of purpose so that peace may endure and well-being may flourish for generations to come. Greetings, greetings to us all. Ko Elise Te Huna tōku ingoa. My name is Elise Te Huna, He Deputy Coordinator Aho mō Global Greens. I am the Deputy Coordinator for Global Greens. I would like to finish with a waiata, a Māori song that our Aotearoa Greens co-leader and Member of Parliament, Marama Davidson, wrote for our party members. This song talks about the well-being of our people and environment. Mā te oranga o te taiao, ka ora ai te iwi, mō te takitani aue, kore mō te toru toru anake. Kore mō te toru toru anake. Thank you, everyone. I will now hand over to our Global Greens Secretary, Lucy, to address you all for the next part of the opening. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Alice, for the introduction. So my name is Lucy Kagendo Mbai, and I'm the Global Green Secretary in Kenya. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you joining us from across the world. It is my great honor to welcome you to day 2 of Global Green's 25th anniversary celebrations. Yesterday, we reflected on the journey 25 years of building a global movement. rooted in ecological wisdom, social justice, grassroots democracy, and nonviolence. Today, we turn our focus to the future. As the Secretary of Global Greens and also a proud member of Green Congress of Kenya, I bring you warm greetings from Africa, a continent rich in resilience, diversity, and innovation, yet also on the front line of the climate crisis. Our presence here today, from every region of the world, is a powerful reminder this movement is truly global, and our shared challenges demand shared solutions. Day two is about deepening dialogue and strengthening connections across regions from Europe to Americans, from the indigenous networks and to the youth voices. We will explore how democracy, biodiversity, and inclusion intersect. These conversations are not abstracts, they are urgent to all of us here. Around the world, we are witnessing shrinking civic space, environmental degradation, and growing inequalities. But we are also witnessing a lot of courage, also creativity and collective action. As Greens, we are all called not only to respond to the crisis, but also to reimage systems to build economies that serve people and the planet, to protect biodiversity and as well as the foundation of life, and to ensure that democracy and inclusive and it's just. And especially want to recognize the importance of the voices. We will in the women sections. We'll have also men also in our various sessions. We have the indigenous representatives, the young people, and also the parliamentarians. These voices are not just part of the conversation. They must shape the future of well-being of the people in the world. Let us use this day to listen deeply and to collaborate broadly. Let us strengthen the ties between our movements and parties and reaffirm our commitment to solidarity across borders. As we celebrate 25 years of Global Greens, let us remember this is not just an adversary, it is a renewal of purpose, a renewal of hope, and a renewal of responsibility that we need to act. We have networks uh, in our Global Greens. We have the Climate Working Group. We have our Biodiversity Working Group. We also have a Women Network that is just for women, so it's closed up. We have a Democracy that is open to everyone. We have an Indigenous Network. And also we have a Parliamentary Network that is a closed one just for the parliamentarians already in the different parts of the world that we have. If you go to the Global Greens website that we'll share here, then you'll be able to see various things. One of them, you can be able to subscribe to the various networks and groups that I've talked about and be part of the conversations that's in the various groups. And also that's where we also get to interact more one-on-one. Most of us have meetings every month. You can also go to the same website, subscribe to our newsletter and be in touch. You get news on the things that we are doing over and over times. We go to our website, we have different things. We have statements, we have from different parts and also from the different working groups. So kindly subscribe to that. Lastly, thank you so much for the support that you've always given us. Without you, we could not be able to do much that we're doing. So if you go to the website also again, you can go to the donate button and also donate and support the work that we are doing. So if you have seen the program, we have different sessions that we are going to have. So we'll have the opening that we are having. Then after that, we are going to go straight to the Europeans. Then we'll have a sessions on democracy, and then we have the women and the indigenous. Then after we have the Americans, then we'll have the young Greens and the parliamentarians, then the closing. And in between, we're going to be having the breakouts. So thank you so much. And lastly, thank you so much, and I wish you a productive and inspiring day. Thank you so much, and welcome. Karibu. Back
Thank you, Lucy. Uh, we now have our first keynote speaker, Margaret Blakers. Her topic is about the establishment steps of global greens. Margaret Blakers is a long-time environmental activist, organiser of the first Atlas of Australian birds, Victoria Greens co-founder and advisor to Senator Bob Brown. Margaret has been involved in global greens as an organizer of Global Greens 2001 and the first Global Greens convener. She is the founding director of the Green Institute and co-founder of the Women's Environmental Leadership Australia. So I am pleased to welcome Margaret when you are ready to address everyone. Thank you.
Hello. Hi there. Thanks, Elise, and thanks, Lucy, for that introduction. And Elise, that song was just beautiful. I'm speaking to you from Australia, from Canberra, in fact, and I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on the lands of the Ngunnawal people and also the home of the Global Greens. And what I'm going to do is just briefly sketch out how we came to have the Global Greens starting in Canberra, and then look at some suggestions for what might come next. So why Canberra? How was it that the Global Greens started in Canberra? That seems completely improbable on the face of it. Here we are, a small English-speaking city, that's Canberra, on the far side of the planet from most Green parties. And the Australian Greens as a national party didn't even exist until 1992, and we didn't get our first elected representative in the Senate, that was Bob Brown, until 1996, when he just scraped into the Senate and avoided jail by the skin of his teeth, having been arrested in the Tarkine of northwestern Tasmania in the run-up to the election. So there we were, the Australian Greens, newly arrived on the national political scene, and we wanted to make some kind of an impact. And the idea that we came up with was to invite all the world's Green parties to Canberra at the start of the new millennium. So this was the end of 1996. It was ridiculously ambitious. We had no money, no resources to speak of. But in November of that year, November 1996, the Australian Greens formally agreed to hold a Global Green Conference in Canberra at Easter 2001. It was 2001 so as not to compete with the Olympics, which were to be held in September 2000. And it was Easter because that's about the only time you can guarantee, or pretty much, that parliaments won't be sitting, and therefore parliamentarians are free to travel to meetings like this one. So we set up a working group convened by Deb Foskey, who was our international secretary at that stage, and we started planning for a conference of maybe 300 people from 50 countries. And just to paint a picture, we're talking about the end of the 1990s. When you look at this setup that we have here, which is just absolutely extraordinary, the technology, and think back to what it was like 25 years ago at the end of the 1990s, it was primitive, to say the least. Emails were slow and clunky, web pages scarce, and electronic money transfer almost non-existent. So people registered for the Congress by filling in a form, that's paper, writing a check to send money, paper, and putting it in an envelope with a stamp, and then putting it in a post box, and off it went when it arrived at our door. It was actually pretty efficient, but boy, it was slow. And voice communication was by phone, horrendously expensive and not very reliable. So we worked our way along bit by bit, trying to produce or to do the preparation for the Congress. And early in 2000, we made a firm decision that we would go ahead, and that I took on to be the organizer and the convener of the Congress. So June 2000, we set up an office in Canberra. It was in an old government building with very brown walls, dark. And I sat there on the first day alone with a computer on a desk, and that was it. And the job of organizing an international conference in 9 months' time. So we gathered around the volunteers. We set up an international reference group to advise on the key decisions that we had to make as we went along. Louise Crossley took on the huge job of negotiating what's now the Global Greens Charter, working from Macquarie Island, where she was the leader of the base. That's halfway to Antarctica from Australia. And we organised the practicalities, of course, the funding, the translation, the accommodation, entertainment. We organised an amazing organic dinner at Parliament House. Visas, very difficult, but not as difficult as they are now, and it's getting worse. And time zones, which are just completely intractable. And personally, I'm a paid-up member of the Flat Earth Society to try and deal with them. We made a huge effort to contact parties. Bob Brown and Christine Milne travelled to Europe and the Americas to promote the Congress. I made it a mission to ring every party that we knew of around the planet to invite them personally to come. And by December, it was clear that we were heading for something a bit bigger than 300 people. So we had to change the venue. We had booked Old Parliament House partly because of its symbolism, but also it was actually quite a nice venue, but a little one, well, relatively speaking. Fortunately, the convention centre was not booked, and we were able to switch over to that. And then the rest is history. The first day, I don't think anybody who was there will ever forget. It was just electric. It was amazing. So many people, so many languages, so many different costumes and faces and features, and just amazing. And the air of expectation that was palpable. There were 800 people from over more than 70 countries who turned up. And we agreed eventually, just on the last afternoon on the Sunday. So the conference started on there was a pre-conference on the Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday was the Global Greens. On Sunday afternoon, with magnificent chairing from Christine Milne, we managed to get agreement, accepted the Global Greens Charter by acclamation, and also set up or passed the resolution that was required to set up what has become known as the Global Greens Coordination. So the question I want to think about is, would the Global Greens exist without Canberra? And my answer is yes and no, of course. I think there would have had to be some kind of loose network. The European Greens had already started down that path in the 1990s by engaging Rosalie Stewart from New Zealand to make a list of parties and people from around the world. The other two things, the Charter and the Global Greens Coordination, I think they were moments in time. The Charter, I think it's unlikely that we would have been able to get an agreed charter of that kind, if not for Canberra. I think Canberra, as I said, a moment in time, and we took it on, certainly I did, with a fair degree of naivety. So we didn't know what we were getting into, whereas, for example, the European Greens would not in the slightest bit interested in taking on that kind of task for the world as a whole, because they had to do it obviously for Europe, and that was pretty much of a handful already. But I think making the trip to Canberra, because it was so far away, involved the participants making a serious investment of time and money. So in deciding to come, parties were committing themselves to the process and to getting an outcome. failure would have reflected badly on everyone. As for the Global Greens Coordination, it's a body with decision-making power that's actually anchored back to the grassroots. And I think it's also unlikely, I think, that it would exist, certainly in that form, if not for Canberra. It was heavily contested at the time. The Americans had a proposal for an online network, and there was huge debate about what the role and powers of the Global Greens Coordination should be. And if you read the resolution, you can see how heavily fought over every word must have been, and it was. And the bottom line is, I can't imagine when or how such a body would have been set up without the momentum of the Canberra Congress. So 25 years on, what strikes me is two things. One is the spirit of generosity that infused the whole event, from volunteers to negotiators to everyone in between. What they all contributed in their different ways made it work. And secondly, that we did in fact create something that has proved durable in spite of considerable difficulties. And the Global Greens Congresses have played a key role in that, and we owe big thanks to the parties that have hosted them over the last 25 years. That's Sao Paulo in Brazil was the first, well, it was meant to be Africa, but there were problems in holding it in Africa at the time when it was due. And the Brazilian Greens stepped in and we held it in Sao Paulo. Then we went to Africa after that, to Dakar in Senegal, then to England, to Liverpool, and finally, most recently, to Songdo in South Korea. The technology that we now have, of course, is amazing, but in the end, politics is about people, and there's no substitute for getting together in person, and that's what the Congresses have enabled. So where to from here? The world's in turmoil. We're facing environmental catastrophe on several fronts. And as Ingrid Betancourt said in Canberra 25 years ago, what we want is leadership to change the course of history. We're not entitled to be a marginal political option. We should aim for power and obtain it and use it. The Charter and the Global Greens Coordination are assets that no other political group has. They are precious. So let's make sure that we use them effectively. And on that basis, here's 3 actions that to be considered. The first is to resource the Global Greens properly. You really can't run an organisation, in my view, with fewer than, say, 3 or 4 staff. So let's aim to have that for the Global Greens. We've never had anything approaching that except at the actual time of the congresses occasionally. Some time ago, we had the idea of a 1% fund aligned to the 0.7% that of overseas direct aid that we say countries ought to be providing to the lower income parts of the world. So huge thanks to all the elected representatives and parties who are contributing on that 1% basis. But why don't we all join in? 1% would be great, but any amount is welcome. But what's important is that it's predictable. So annual or monthly or quarterly, whatever it suits, but regular donations to help get the Global Greens Coordination properly, or the Global Greens rather, properly resourced. Secondly, we'll be much more effective if Green parliamentarians around the world are connected. And I understand that the Green Parliamentarians Network, which did exist for a time, is about to be brought back to life. And that's truly excellent. For it to be, and of course, for it to be really effective, C.1, that is resources. And thirdly, let's see if we can come up with a couple of specific capacity building and/or campaign projects, and maybe there already are because I'm not really close to what's happening, but projects that build on our global outlook and reach that no one else could do, in fact. Again, to be workable, it requires 0.1. So sorry to be a bit of a bore, but 0.1 is really the critical one. If we have the resources, there's an endless amount of things we can do. So finally, to quote from the Charter, we will support each other personally and politically with friendship, optimism and good humour, and not forget to enjoy ourselves in the process. So thank you very much for the organisers of this congress. It's like a congress, an online conference. It's fantastic, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret, and nice to meet you online. And you're an amazing speaker and done amazing work for our Greens movement. So thank you very much. I will now pass to Lucy to introduce the next item.
Thank you so much, Alison, and thank you so much, Margaret. So our next speaker is going to be a video, and this is about 25 years of democracy. And this is from Claudia Loth, who is a long-standing member of the German Green Parliamentarian Delegation to the IPU, which is a group organization of national parliamentarians. Claudia has been leading the German delegation in the past, even when the Greens were not in government. Claudia was a member of the European Parliament 20 years ago, but she's now a member of the German Parliament. Global Greens finally got observer status at the IPU last year. And so even last year, we had people who also represented us. The IPU Assembly is currently meeting in Istanbul, and Claudia is there together with other Green parliamentarians. Global Greens is supporting the networking of the Greens in the IPU, and this is a real added advantage value that we can provide to member parties and the parliamentarians that nobody else can deliver. So next we are going to have it. Thank you so much, and listen.
Dear friends, dear Global Greens, dear Green family, my Green family, heartfelt congratulations on 25 years of Global Greens. I was in the European Parliament from 89 to 98, and we dreamt to have not only the European Green Party together, but also the Global Greens. And now, 25 years ago, it was a starting point for a story of success. Look at what we've achieved as part of this Global Green family. It fills me with great joy and with gratitude to look back on what we've built together over the last 25 years. A powerful idea has grown into a global networking, connecting people across every continent, driven by the conviction that we can only shape our future together and that the challenges are global. Green politics worldwide, that's far more significant than our current representation in the world's parliament suggests. But we are united by more than politics. We are united by a shared foundation of values: ecological responsibility, social justice, democracy, peace, and respect for diversity. These values are more important today than ever before. They are more needed than ever before, for we are living in a time of great challenges. The climate crisis is advancing and more question of survival. Inequalities are growing, and democracies are under pressure and are systematically attacked, even in places where we thought democracies were stable, even in my country, for example. Right now, it is becoming clear just how indispensable green politics is. It is not an add-on. It is prerequisite for ensuring that we can continue to live well and to live with dignity in the future. Considering global challenges, we must take this message heard even more loudly in our countries. For 25 years, the Globa Greens have shown that change is possible. Hope is possible, and it begins where people act together. Let us continue this path together with confidence, with determination, and with a firm belief that we can make a difference, even though we currently live in a world that has been thrown into turmoil. Let us stand in solidarity across borders and be the voice for all those who have none. In these times, let us not give up hope, but remain combative and united. Congratulations, Globa Greens.